I did not really speak in English prior to being in the BPO.
Okay.
It was like a total culture shock for me. I
Mm.
did not even, I mean, before my BPO experience, I did not really get to talk to a lot of Americans. Top three struggles. These were my struggles. So number one,
Okay.
culture,
Mm.
because communication is more than just grammar or pronunciation or like the technical stuff, but it's really culture.
Mm.
Um, I was not accustomed to a culture that is different from Philippines. I mean Filipino
Yeah.
culture. So
I
hard for
guess,
me
yeah. Adapt.
to yeah to adapt to this new environment.
Mm.
Like even for example, even the culture of the BPO itself. Even when we're in the Philippines, but somehow, like the managers, some of the
Yeah.
tenured agents were able to really get like westernized, if I can use that term.
Mm.
So in
Yeah.
terms of their expression, in terms of how they look at things. So that was one thing for me. I really was culture shocked.
Okay.
Number two is, I mean, coming from there, of course, speaking in English, because
Yeah.
I did not, I was not speaking English on a daily basis,
True,
and
true.
it was hard for me to articulate my thoughts. It's really, it was, I really did, I went through a phase
Mm.
where I transliterated things,
Mm.
like
Like literally
transliteration. I mean, for
translating
every,
everything.
right, right, literally translating everything, like Filipino words in my head, and just literally translating that to English. But
Yeah.
that's one major reason for a communication breakdown.
Efficient and effective communication. So
Mm.
that's very important because, coherence, you should know what you're talking about, and, you should be direct, direct to the point when you're talking about something,
Mhm.
or talking about a particular topic. That's very, very important because if you're efficient, you're making sure that you're not wasting anybody's time.
Yeah.
When you're effective, you're making sure that your communication is coming across as something that is understandable.
Mm.
That is something that's very important. And for us who's not used to that before going to, or joining the industry, you develop that along the way,
Exactly.
because as you do this communication or talking with people and with customers, especially for voice account, because I've been with voice account for the past years. I just recently assisted and supported a non-voice program.
Mm.
So for all those years, it helped me a lot in making sure that when I talk to people, especially during training, my words would come across as something that is understandable,
Mm.
easily digested, I
Yeah.
think.
Perfect.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned that because we have a lot of viewers questioning themselves, asking themselves whether it is possible for them to be in the industry if they're not really that perfect when it comes to communication
Hmm.
skills. And like you mentioned,
Hmm.
you actually get to develop that over time. And you won't be able to
Yes.
if you don't actually immerse yourself or you're not in the environment yet. You're not in the industry
Mhm.
yet. It's true that you will need to
True.
have the minimum skills when you're applying. You should at least know how to speak and comprehend English, but you'll become better. And I think that's true not only for you but also for me. Uh, when I started, I felt really confident with my English communication skills, but I realized that there was still so much more that I needed to learn. And there were things that I was so embarrassed because I felt like I already knew it, but then I
Uh-huh.
was wrong. So at least you have this self awareness that okay, there are so many things that you're not doing right, and you have to correct them. So
True.
yeah, and then a lot of that will also be corrected during training, and most especially
Uh-huh.
when you're already taking calls, right? Yeah.
Right, right. And if I may add, Miss Ray,
Mm.
um, when we're taking calls, we're not expected to be, of course, perfect at the start of your career. In
Yeah.
the industry, you're not expected to be perfect, of course. And no one, trust me, is expecting for you to be perfect.
Yeah.
Your the years that you're practicing, you're doing it, and you're practicing because you want to gain that confidence, that progress. Because
Mhm.
I always share to my participants, to my trainees, that we're practicing because we want to have that progress.
Yeah.
We're not practicing to become perfect.
Mhm.
So we should do that regularly because we want to be better,
Yes.
not because we're attaining perfection,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
So one of the most common is the trouble communicating in English
Mm-hmm.
because we are non-native English speakers, and if you don't speak English on a daily basis and it is not your mother tongue, so it's only normal that you're gonna be having a hard time understanding the accent of your customer. I know that your English could be enough to get you hired during the interview, but when you take your first call on the first day with a live customer, it's going to be really nerve-wracking. The anxiety is there because it's live, and
True.
your English is just going to be diminished.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started during my first day of taking calls, I was really nervous, and I even asked a customer to spell pure later. Pure later, by the way, uh, is a well-known courier company in Canada, and you can only imagine the shock of the customer when I asked her to, can you spell pure later? I was not
Okay.
even aware that it was, yeah, so it was hard. And you will, as a new hire, before you take calls, you will really experience these moments, and they know that they are normal. Don't give up. Don't feel bad about yourself. This is really something that you will experience. But I did not experience that, mind you, in every call. But at least maybe the first 2 weeks is really hard, and you will experience at least 2 to 3 calls like that. The rest of the calls, you will be fine. You will be able to at least understand, and also you will be. Based on my experience, I ask a lot of follow-up questions because sometimes I'm not able to initially understand what the customer is saying. So bear that in mind. And I think the most effective way that you can do this is you can deal with this is to just immerse yourself in the culture of the country that you're going to be serving. For example, most of your customers are from the US. The best thing that you can do in this case is to just watch movies, uh, American movies especially, if you really want to listen to the accent of the customer. But accent really is the least of your concern. The problem, what you really should work on is understanding the accent. You don't have to sound like, a real American, although that is a plus, but you don't have to, as long as you have this neutral accent that an American could understand.
Yeah.
But what's important is you have to be able to understand the American accent. So, because you will be communicating with them. The thing is, you don't need to have a perfect grammar to be in this industry. My grammar is still not perfect. Because as you go, you will learn new things along the way. You cannot learn new skills just by delaying your application to the call center industry. So that's really important. You don't need to have a perfect grammar. This is like an issue in the Philippines. I don't know if this is a Pinoy thing, but we're usually very critical when somebody makes a grammar mistake. So
Right.
this has to change a little bit. So, people would be more courageous, especially when applying in the industry.
For someone like me who's from the province, English was never my second language. Barely spoke that language, maybe quite a few times in school. But the what's that? The quirkiness, and the nuances of how a native speaker would speak that language is a lot different than how we do it today. So that
Yeah.
was very interesting. That was a very interesting experience for me. Quite a bit challenging. I don't have a background on finance.
Mhm.
Um, that was never my course. I think I'm thankful with the help I received from training team, from my supervisors along the way, from the SMEs to everyone around me, especially with tenured agents we get to sit side by side with.